pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, need a motion to approve the waiver of notice. Motion.
I'll second it.
Chris and Marilyn, all in favor? 5. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion. I'll second.
Amanda and Mary, all in favor of that? 5-0. We are to you, sir.
Okay. Give these to.
Thank you.
Okay, well, what we're gonna do tonight, is walk you through, the bids, every one of the bid packages that we solicited that makes up this project. What we're gonna focus in on are the base bids. So within this project, there were 4 alternates. There's a base bid, scope of work, and 4 different alternates. The way they'll work though is if somebody's not gonna be selected to provide services for an alternate if they weren't selected for the base bid. Okay, so that's why when it comes to sub-selection, we're gonna look at the base bids. So we're not gonna break them apart. Now, what I have done is I've assembled what's considered a guaranteed max, basically a draft of what the guaranteed maximum price for this part of the project would be if you, as a board, go with every subcontractor recommendation we bring to you tonight. Okay. This is 2 things here. First, this is a schedule, so I know it's kind of hard to read. I tried to print it on as big a paper as I could bring to you tonight, but this was something we produced in advance of putting it out to bid. This is a schedule of activities associated with everything that's in the base bid. Every one of those blue bars represents work in the base bid. So the very first block here is anything site work related. The next section here is everything related to building the storm shelter. And then you've got the 2 areas of 1948 classroom renovations and then your fax room renovations. You've got a gray bar here at the tail end activity of the storm shelter that represents finishing out the storm shelter. If you guys elect to take that option, that's when that would happen. And then you've got down here, this green bar represents the alternate number 2, which is taking the existing weight room, turning it into a locker room. I show that being a summer project for next year, just so that, talking with Tyson, that room's still getting used this year. We won't even go in there and do that work. It'll be a summer project if you elect to do it. And then the orange and the red bar or marine bar at the bottom, those are your alternate 3 and 4. I can get into a little bit of detail what those are. Those are things that can kind of happen throughout the whole time we're here on site doing this other stuff. So that's why there's just a big long bar. Doesn't necessarily 10 solid months worth of work on those, but they can happen at any point during the project is what that's just kind of representing. How this worked is, so we put the project out to bid. It was on the street for approximately 3 weeks. We hosted a pre-bid meeting here on site where it was not mandatory, but any staff that wanted to come visit, put eyes on the project, ask questions at that time, were able to do so. Manny was here for that walkthrough. We had a lot of subcontractors show up, which was good. There were some questions that came out of it. What we did is about 2/3 of the way through the time that it was out to bid, we issued what's called an addendum, which is basically anything that's a clarification or modification to the design, either stemming from questions that came up or just something else that extra information they produced. All of that is considered the contract documents now. So everything that was given over to the bidders, including those addendums, is all part of what they're contracted and their bid represents. We have spent the last, so bids were taken on Friday last week at 2:00. They were due to meet Friday at 2. We've spent the time since then reviewing every one of these bids, calling the bidders, making sure everything's complete, trying to make a, make sure if we're bringing you a bid, I know for sure they've got everything in there that they're supposed to have to make sure it's an accurate and complete bid. And then ultimately what I've done is I've plugged that into an estimate, and you'll see on this sheet, this represents a first draft of what the guaranteed max price for this work would be with all those sub-selections. I'm going to start out by just cutting to the chase, telling you how we're sitting budget-wise. I want you to know, though, as we go through the bid packages, you're going to see a lot of ebbs and flows, okay? Like you're going to see, because I'm going to show you the budget we had in there for whatever that work is, like what we had in for electrical or what we had in for painting or so on and whatnot. And then how many bids we got and what their bids were, and you can see the comparison between the two. There's a lot, naturally there's a lot of ebbs and flows. Some things are way over budget, some things came in really good, some things one way or the other slightly, but this spreadsheet, you saw something really similar to this when we brought you the price for the summer roofing. Line items 22 and 24 were the numbers associated with that work. So that contract, the amount for that work was $295,281. It represented the work that was previously budgeted at $212 and $103. So the net of that is we were about 20 grand under budget when we did that project. So we're coming into this about $20,000 under budget. Where we are with everything in the base bid for this is about $4,671,850 is the number I'm at right now. Everything in a blue bar here, it means that's what's picked up. So if it doesn't have a number and if it's still white in this column, that means that work was not in this package. It's going to get picked up when we bid the elementary school. So essentially what that brings us down to is anything associated with the grade school, except we're picking up two grade school items within these documents. And then we do have overall campus-wide, we're going to replace all the control joint caulking on all the buildings. That's going to get picked up in the elementary package. So that's why that one line item 6 in the high school is a white box right now. It's not shown as there. But if you look at that, if that GMP settles at $4,671,850, in conjunction with where we were at before, we're about $44,000 under budget across to this point, going through the summer work plus everything we have here. So when you're looking at numbers and you're seeing a lot, don't get nervous as we go through, because this is ultimately the net result of all of that. Down at the bottom here, I've shown you the 4 alternates. So there's four things that are alternate options that could be added into the scope of the project. These 4 things were all outside of the original bond program that you guys selected. And so that first one is the finish out of the storm shelter. So the storm shelter in the bond program is basically an unfinished space on the inside. Had some toilet plumbing fixtures in there, basically a sink and a urinal and a toilet, and then it's just a big open room, right? And so to do a full finish out of that to a locker room, that's about $340,409 is the amount for that. Alternate 2 is associated with taking the current weight room and turning it into a girls' locker room. And so that is about $398,042. Alternate 3 is kind of an accumulated list of other things within this school. Maybe Bruce can dive into it, but just kind of various other things that were potential needs in the building, but not part of what was in the bond program, and so that accumulates $315.75. And then alternate 4 were what we call code upgrades. So you might want to touch a little bit on what those are and all, but those are mainly things related to door hardware, changing door hardware in other parts of the building, like around outside of the area that we're doing the heavy renovation in, and there's some changes to some plumbing in some areas with drinking fountains and making some handicap accessible bathrooms out of the ones that are currently in the middle school. It's kind of the crux of everything in that alternate number 4. Any questions so far? Okay, I will tell you as we go through this bid package, what you're going to see the budget, you're going to see the name of the subcontractor that submitted the bid, you're going to see their number. There are 2 packages that I am recommending we rebid. And because this is a public meeting and it's on YouTube, out of protecting the bidding process, I'm going to be pretty vague there. I'm just going to tell you what, for instance, we didn't get a lot of bids on this. It came in a lot over budget. I think if we went out and bid, sought more bidders, this would come in better. I'm not going to tell you who they were. I'm not going to tell you what their numbers were, because ultimately we want to make sure that that person's previous bid's honored and that number's not out there floating when we go to rebid. So you'll just see there's 2 tabs that all you'll see is the name of the package and then rebid. So, one other point of clarification, just to kind of let you know what all is in this GMP. There's really 3 things outside of what are on these drawings. Well, there's 3 other things that are all picked up within that this draft of a GMP, the $4,671,000. One we brought to you at a previous board meeting, buying the electrical gear that is needed. It was like $72,000 or something like that. That we bought that early because it takes about 12 months to get. I've just been holding on to that cost. It wasn't, that came after the high school thing was so I have that number in this number now, so we're picking it up here. We've done a lot of sewer line investigation to get to this assist design, so we've cameraed most of your old cast iron sewer lines in this building, and so we just had Tatro doing that on an hourly basis, and we've just been paying them for that, and so I've captured all those bills, and those are wrapped up, and we're catching that in this number. And then at the tail end of the work we did at the VOAG building, they asked us to take out part of the window, cut the wall, and get it so they could put a garage door in there. So we just did that basically on an hourly. We just kept track of time and material and expenses we accumulated doing that. So I picked that up. That's in here too. So that really kind of catches up on any time and material work we did over there, plus things we've already cut loose and stuff. So, okay, questions? I'm going to start walking through bids. So Alexi's going to pull a spreadsheet up on this. We're going to walk through these in order of. There you go. Okay. All right. So this is the first package. So there are 2 packages that Hutton bid on. So basically this one and the air and moisture barrier joint seal and caulking package 2. We bid on it with basically submitted a bid as if we were a competing sub. And so I turned those bids over to I turned them over to Bruce 24 hours before bid day was due. So Bruce got those via email from us Thursday before 2 o'clock. That's really just gives you guys confidence and all the bidders that are bidding it to know that Hutton didn't see anybody's number as we were putting our number together. Okay, so if you want to scroll a little bit left, Alexi. So budget for this is interior demo. So this is everything inside the building. So everything demo outside, like taking up concrete paving, taking out anything that happens outside is all in the dirt work package. That was all done by the dirt work guy. This is everything inside the building. Everything from taking the EIFS and the glass block and the windows out all the way through, except for anything related to asbestos abatement. There's a separate package for that. So budget was 122. 2 bids, ours was 137. Midwest Demos was 90. We're recommending Midwest Demolition for this. Abatement. This came down quite a bit, and the reason for that, so we were at 124,000. We got 3 different bids. Remediation contractors, ISI, ACM. We've gone through, we've vetted all these, we've asked lots of questions, we're comfortable with all these numbers. What changed here is in the old drawings we had, on your outside windows, when you go outside, you see that EIFS goes up and then kind of tips out at the roof line. Behind that, in the old drawings, there was some siding panel that was called to be a product called Semestos. Well, that's an asbestos-containing siding, and we suspected that it was still there, that they just laid the EIFS right over it. And so, because of the risk of disturbing it when you're taking all that EIFS off, we originally budgeted that all that EIFS and the siding panel behind it would all be done by the abatement guys. And so during this process, we had an abatement company come out and actually cut a hole in it, take a sample, and they found out that there's just plywood back there now. So at some point in the life, those things were already taken out. So when we did that, we just changed the scope of work and said that's no longer abatement. That's all picked up by the demo guy now because it doesn't have to be abatement process. So that brought that.
Why Brad cancer now.
So that number came down quite a bit. I'm sure it was properly abated.
I'm sure it was properly done.
So that's why that one's so different. This is basically what they're down to now. Everywhere in your old 1948 high school, all your flooring is laid over top of asbestos floor tile. You got 9x9 floor tiles in all those rooms. The hallway, the classrooms, in the old locker rooms where there's a sheet vinyl and carpet, 9x9 tiles are underneath it. We can't go in there and peel the carpet up because it'll stay stuck to those tiles, and those tiles will come up and they'll break. And so all flooring is being taken up by the abatement guys. So that's what that package consists of. Okay, the next package is concrete. So this one, we got one bidder on this, and you'll see as we go through, there was a few packages where we only got one bidder. Price came in pretty comparable. This is actually, as we look through this, what we're having to do foundation-wise, at where we up against the existing gym, there's a detail where we kind of underpin underneath the existing foundation. That was more than I had originally assumed we would have to do, so we did pretty good. Essentially, we're doing a little bit more footing and foundation detail work than I was expecting originally. That's reflected there. This actually, as we were going into this Thursday, I found out we did not have any. Basically, we send the bid out. We usually call about 4 or 5 days after we send the invite out, make sure everybody got the email, are you interested in the project, and then we usually call a second time about 4 or 5 days before bids are due. And in that process, everybody, we had more no's and a couple maybes. And they were all like, well, I can't get you a number by Friday at 2 then. So I sent a notice out and I extended this bid time out to 5 o'clock on Monday. And so everybody got notified Thursday afternoon that we were extending it out one more day. And bids were for this package only weren't come due till Monday at 5 o'clock. In doing that, Wichita Construction Group, they're concrete guys. We've worked on several projects out here with them. They travel out here quite a bit. They're the low bidders on it. So this is everything. So this is everything from the building addition to sidewalks and that sort of thing. Okay, next one is masonry. Got 2 bids on masonry. Came in under budget. Had lots of conversations with CL. Feel good about it. He was 180,000. We were 244 coming in. So that's good. I think I was just a little strong on my estimate there. I think masonry had seemed to be getting more and more expensive to buy lately, and so I was just, I think, a little bit just heavy on my cost per square foot on the estimate there coming into this. Next one, structural steel supply. So we buy the steel and then we hire a steel erector separately, right? So we'll buy the steel direct. This one again just came in a lot less than I was budgeting. We got, would you highlight Midwest Steel there? So we budget was $97,000. Midwest Steel is $43,500. Midwest Steel is the one we're recommending. Steel erection, we're gonna rebid this. We got one bid. I think we can do better pricing wise, and I'm gonna rebid it. So the other thing I want you to know though, the number that I got for steel erection and the number I got for painting, which is the other bid package I'm gonna rebid, are in this number. So whatever we gain from rebidding will be a savings on this. And I'll get into the detail of how we handle that in a minute, but let's just finish going through these. But I am holding that number that I suggest we rebid. Okay, millwork supply, so this is buying all the casework. I got quite a few there. 43,216 was the budget. 28,338 was kitchens. They're out of Dodge City. They do a ton of school stuff. They do a lot of everything millwork related. That's who we recommend. So this is to buy all the material for the millwork package. Okay. Roofing. So we got this one's a little different. So originally in the design or in the scope, the roofer would also do any like architectural metal panels. What we've got on your windows here, that top part, which currently kind of bent stips out, that's going to get cut back and be straight vertical, and it gets covered up with a metal panel. I put that in the metal panels design, a roofing package, so the roofer would also provide and install those metal panels. For whatever reason, the vendor, the design has this using this dry design. It's a specific branded product, and the vendor didn't get his number out to anybody. So all the roofers excluded it in their bids to me. Nobody picked it up because dry design didn't send a bid out to anybody. I came to find out. So, anyways, So what I've got there is Weathercraft Roofing, which is the overhead door product out of Garden City / Weathercraft Roofing. They're the ones we're recommending. Diamond Roofing is the next. As you can see, they're pretty close. Weathercraft's number, he has it broken into two categories. So it's the sum of the two, so it's a little over $180,000. So it's pretty close. Diamond is the one that did the VOAG in the daycare building. But we're suggesting Weathercraft. The reason I put Dry Designs on there is I got a quote after bid day. I got a quote direct from Dry Designs to supply those. I've got money in this budget for Hutton to install it with our own crews, but I just wanted to put up there like that kind of makes that package whole. So this might be way more detailed than you really want to know, but I'm just trying to be as thorough as I can here. Okay, the next one is waterproofing and caulking. So on the outside of the new addition, behind the brick, what you won't see when it's all done, is a membrane, is a painted on rubber, basically kind of a rubberized membrane that is an air barrier, keeps moisture from getting into the building. Plus there's some other caulking and sealants that go along with it. Budget was $43,856. Hutton did a bid. Restoration Waterproofing, who does a lot of work out here, they bid it too. We're recommending we go with their number. Okay. Doors and hardware. So this is to supply all the doors and hardware, except for the aluminum doors, which we only have a couple on this. But this is all your door frames, wood doors, metal doors, all the associated hardware. We were just under $60,000 on a budget. Royal Architecture out of Amarillo, Texas, was the supplier. They were $74,548. Okay. Glass and glazing. So this is all your aluminum windows. There's a couple exterior aluminum doors. This one looks significantly under budget, and it's really kind of I would say one of the big things is when we budgeted this, we just assumed the entire exterior facade from the windowsill all the way up to the roof was going to get filled in with storefront, and then the top section would get filled in with like blacked out glass. So we just covered the whole square footage with aluminum. What we ultimately are actually going to have is you have these windows that are aluminum, but there's going to be these infill sections of brick. The top is actually metal. So a lot of that dollars got moved over into masonry and got moved over into metal panel, because the money to support the grand budget was all kind of sitting in the aluminum storefront budget. But what we actually have is a kind of facade that's made up of different materials. And so that's where, so that's why that seems so much lower. And so we're recommending Kenny Glass. And I think, are you using Kenny for all your insurance window stuff? Okay, so you're using Kenny on your own for replacing windows associated with your storm damage, and they're out of Garden City. Next one, so this is a drywall, grid ceilings. There is a little bit of like ephes and stucco that is in some parts of this. We had 191,000, that came in at 176. So that's our recommendation as we go with them. On flooring, Star Commercial flooring, we were budgeted 139,000. Star Commercial came in at 100,000. Painting, this is a rebid package. Specialties, so this is the purchase. Specialties is like toilet partitions, marker boards, tack boards, handicap grab bars, all those sorts of parts and pieces. This is your two alternates. Alternates 1 and 2 have a pretty substantial specialties number in them, because that would also, that same vendor would be the supplier of the lockers. And so when you do the finish out of the locker room or the remodel of the other one, there's lockers in those. So this base bid doesn't have lockers in it because it's not either one of those locker rooms, but that's the vendor for all of that stuff. Plumbing and HVAC, we've got 2, Central Consolidated and Tetro. When the specs say to basically provide like a 1-year bumper to bumper warranty on the HVAC system, we hadn't always suggest a 3-year warranty, and so I asked for that as like an ad, and so I have that 17,072 from Tetro to give you a 3-year kind of bumper to bumper on your mechanical system, and that's picked up in this number. And then electrical, we actually did get 2 bids. 3G Electric is the second bidder. They turned their bid in just a little bit late. They did not get it in by 2 o'clock. They actually were higher anyways. So Davis Electric, obviously Davis has done a ton of work for you guys from the flood and everything. They did the little bit of electrical we needed this summer out there at the storm thing they did. And so Davis, so there's really were 2 bids, but again, 3G turned it, they didn't get the bid in on time. But Davis was complete. This also includes, so this is everything electrical here at the high school, but this also includes your fire alarm system in all your buildings. So this is elementary, daycare, BOAG, fire alarm in all those buildings. So pretty close budget there. And then next is earthwork. So this is dirt work associated with the new addition. And then any of the site demo, this is redoing all the dirt work grading necessary for the new playground and all of that also. 57,000, bid of about 80,000. You can skip that one. And then retaining wall. So to build the, we're moving the playground to the north side of the BOAG building, just to the west of the daycare. To make that all fit, we got to dig into that hillside a little bit. We have to put a retaining wall in. You don't see a budget there because when the original program budget for that, we didn't really realize we were going to need to put a retaining wall in there to make grades work, so I didn't have any money in the budget for that. But that's the cost. Hearthstone is a company out of Wichita that does, brick paver, patio, like paving kind of stuff and retaining walls. That's kind of their specialty stuff. So they were the guys there.
It's similar to the light up block like you've got on the east side of the daycare.
Yeah, it's a dry stack retaining wall, just like what's on the other side of the daycare building. Chain link fence, same thing. Honestly, knew we were moving the playground. Probably, I didn't have anything specifically earmarked for chain link fence around the new playground location, and when we did the original bond program budget, but it's obviously needed. And so that's the number. That's True Value, Garden True Value, just north of 5 Points. They do fencing. That's their number for that. So, but there's no correlating budget.
Does that include installing the fence, or that's just?
Yeah, that's a 4-foot chain link fence bought and installed. And then over by where the storm shelter kind of is up close, storm shelter is going to be separated from the existing boiler room by 6 feet or so. There's going to be a gate, chain link fence gate there, just to keep people from walking back in that little alleyway between the two. So that's all in that number. What's that?
That's cheaper now. What do you guys have to do?
Fencing?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's only 4 foot, so it's not like a 6 foot fence, but yeah, that was good. So, any questions on any of this? Okay, so the two bid packages we want to rebid are the steel erection and painting. Neither one of those are super time sensitive, right? Because we got to get the steel ordered now, but the erector's not going to need to be on site for several months. Painting, not going to happen right away anyways. So I'd like to take, 30 days, kick it back out, get new bids on it, bring it back at your next board meeting, those two packages. However, we do need to set a GMP with you so that we can start writing contracts and getting all this other stuff ordered. Typically, how we handle this is, and then like I'm doing this right now on our Bible Christian church job we're building in Garden City. We did a couple packages, we bid it out and rebid a couple things. So we set the GMP. I'm holding the numbers that I'm rejecting. So those higher bids that I'm expecting to beat later, I'm holding that in this number you have in front of you. When we bid it out, I'll bring back to you what the budget was and what the number we had in that GMP was, what the bid is, and then whatever savings we have capture, I'm going to create a line item in our project costs. It's called owner contingency, and I'll move that money down into there. And so that just basically we'll take it out of painting. If we save whatever we save, we'll take it out. We'll reduce the amount that's shown on the line for painting, and we'll add it in there. And that just sits there. That's your guys' money to use at your disposal. If you want to spend it on anything to add scope into the project or whatnot, you can. If you don't, we get all the way into the job and you haven't spent it, then we just do a deduct change order at the end of the job to take that amount out of the contract and bring our contract amount down. But it just takes it out, and that's basically the best way to get us to where we can go ahead and move forward. We're not waiting on those two little things that aren't actually going to hold up construction. Let us bid it out later and get everything going, and then that money just kind of puts in a contingency fund for you to do with what you want as we go forward.
I might also throw out that the design for the rooftop units was based on your original roof, which did not have nearly as much insulation as your new roofs have. So we can do a quick review to see whether those units can be a lesser size. So, X number of $1,000s per ton, if we can reduce even 1 ton of air conditioning for each of those units, it'd be a significant amount of money.
So refresh, which units are in the bond?
So the ones in this one, there are 7 units for the classrooms, and then takes care of the STEM program and the lobby part right in there. And then there are 2 that are sitting on top of the music room that go into the auditorium.
And then we are, the gym unit that's on the ground where the storm shelter is going to get built, we're going to add some structure to the roof of that storage room right on the other side of that wing, and we're going to raise that, and that's going to put that unit up on the roof. So we're going to move that. That same unit's getting just taken out and reinstalled. It's just getting put up on the roof of the building instead.
It was the existing unit, so additional insulation on the roof of the old gym isn't going to affect the size of that and the cost. But the new ones that we're putting on, we could see some savings there.
And so if we do that, so this bid is based off of the units that were specified. Obviously, nothing's gotten ordered yet. We would go to Tetro, or we'd have the engineers run a recalc. We'd send that to Tetro, say, can you give us a revised price to go to these units? They would come back. If they come back and say, yeah, here's how much you'd save, if you elect to do that, then that money just gets put into that under contingency as well.
And the windows, are they replacing windows now?
When they come in, yeah. So
Are they gonna be the ones that are going?
Yeah,
We have in this number, We are replacing,
These windows right out here, and then the windows on the building, except for the two on the north side that were
yes,
completely busted.
we're replacing the east-facing middle school windows. Everything looks into the courtyard. And then obviously your big systems into all the classrooms in the manufacturing area. And there's 2 windows at the elementary school, 12-foot wide, 2'8", something tall windows that are getting replaced as part of this package too. Because basically you got, after insurance, the only windows that were left to be replaced that were part of the original plan that didn't get damaged by the storm were those 2 or 4, however many there are, I think. And then, and so we just lumped that into this. So
We're not insurance and replacing windows for us to take them back out.
No, so, yeah, the Kenny Glass was able to get our plans
Right.
with, you know, and they're installing those same windows that we had spec, yeah.
Okay, so they won't be.
yes, all your pillow windows are getting replaced with aluminum windows.
With the insurance, the broker.
The ones that were.
Your insurance is covering a lot. The other ones that weren't damaged in the storm are getting done through this.
So that's already factored into this.
Yeah, in the bond package, like most of those on the east side, all of those on the east side that were Bellows were in the bond package. One of those on the east side is being replaced by the insurance, so the rest of them were in his other bid here. But the window package included both the grade school and the high school.
Right. Okay. So you want this base approved?
So all I'm actually seeking tonight is approval to move forward with the subs that we're recommending. This is not a finalized GMP because if you guys had suggested I hire one person or another, so I'll actually bring back to you a formal contract amendment to set the contract amount, and that'll be a separate board action to approve that later. And I'll do that over like in the next week, and so I don't know if, and maybe you want to, since we're not changing anything, I don't see, when you guys approved the actual GMP last time, I can't remember, did you guys do a motion to approve it pending or something, or did you guys hold a special board meeting just to approve that contract amendment when it came in, when I gave it to you?
I thought we did it in a regular meeting. Yeah, like you came back and we just did it in a regular meeting.
Our regular meeting will be what? A week from
13. You probably have one too.
A week from Monday.
The 13th.
My phone's over there. I think it is. There we go. I have one on the 6th.
Oh, so you won't.
I actually might have a different school district on 13th. I don't see this number changing, so, I mean, if you guys can prove, like, you wanna give some sort of a motion to, move forward with this, and then I'll send you a formal contract amendment later that you'll need to sign. I think that would, it's really kind of as you as a board, however you how you feel comfortable proceeding. But I don't see these numbers changing, so.
You good with that? So I'll make a motion that we give the okay to move forward with all the subs that were recommended by Hutton tonight. Does that work for you?
Yeah, and then if you, would a motion to authorize Jared to sign a GMP amendment at a later date if it matches the draft amount presented tonight? Is that way when I?
Did you get that, Raina?
So that if I send this to you
Is that
next
in the
week, you
same
can sign
motion?
it and not wait for another board meeting.
You guys in the same motion?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we approve moving forward with the recommendations by Hutton tonight. And to sign GMP agreement, as long as it doesn't exceed the numbers we talked about tonight.
For a base, I would probably say the base bid amount of $4,671,850.
There you go.
Because you guys are probably gonna need to decide if, a separate decision needs to be made if you wanna do any alternates.
Does that work?
Yes.
Got a second?
Second.
So I made the motion, Chris seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0.
Okay. So we talk now about the alternates. Basically, everybody's bids are good for 30 days. So, I think, I don't think any of these, the storm shelter finish out is probably the only one that we would need a decision on. It would benefit you guys cost-wise if we could get that cut loose and all in the next, by your next board meeting. You got a board meeting in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
You just need to be cognizant, if we don't cut this stuff loose to them, after 30 days, they need to have the opportunity to reprice it. Because pricing, they're gonna hold the pricing for 30 days. I don't think this is likely that you would approve alternate 2 and not alternate 1. Alternate 1 is to finish out the interior of the new storm shelter. Alternate 2 is to renovate the existing weight room to become a girls' locker room. Just within the design, and I don't think it's it's not I don't know how significant of a cost it is, but the way the design reflected is the water lines and the water heater that services the work that takes place in alternate 2 is part of alternate 1. If you, for some reason, said, we're not gonna finish out the storm shelter, but we wanna do alternate 2, the plumbers have to reprice that because they're missing a water heater in the water supply lines. Because that was shown in the drawings as alternate 1 work. You had to, that was, and I guess so the assumption is you would always take 1 before you ever decided to take 2. If for any reason you decide to take 2 without 1, just know that number has to get relooked at. The plumbing part of it, that number has to get relooked at, just because it's missing a couple parts and pieces. So, do you have questions of the scope of any of those 3? Or 4 rather?
There are drawings of those?
Yeah, I've got drawings here. I can throw them up on the screen. Bruce, these are all highlighted up, but you can talk to them about anything that's related to any one of those 4 scopes. Do you want to see anything or specific about them? Or do you want to just give a high level description of what's in alternate 3 and what's in alternate 4? Because we've kind of talked about 1 and 2.
3 was just the carving out this corner over in this room for staff room. It has 1 door in it, so it's stud and drywall. And then there was kind of a 3 for miscellaneous hardware. So for instance, some doors are mostly good, but the lock set isn't, needs replaced, or the door up here in the corridor going to the courtyard is missing a closure. They're little items spread out throughout the building.
The locker rooms, the existing boys' locker and girls' locker rooms of the old gym are in alternate 3.
For
Turning them into,
yeah,
your.
it's like tapping
demoing
all
out,
the plumbing lines and that sort of thing.
demoing out. So when you go come in from the high school hallway and go down, and there's boys on the west and girls on the east, kind of taking out all those interior walls, taking out all the plumbing, capping it, turning them into, the east room becomes the IT closet, the IT office. The west room becomes a janitor's office with some casework and other things in there, so that's all in alternate 3.
So that can't be done without 1 and 2.
Yeah, because we'll be short locker
That can't
rooms.
be done without 1 and 2 being done.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of a domino effect.
Yeah.
If they take 1 and 2, then IT has to go somewhere, and that's an alternate 3.
so all this is coming out of our original bond, all these alternates, but we don't
They
have.
weren't included.
So these are all,
Right,
these
so
are
how are they
all,
gonna be paid for?
well, these are all scopes of work that are not part of the choices you guys as a board originally made. So these are
Right,
other things that I
understand
think,
that. I just wondered where the money's gonna come from.
From the bond, because
the bond.
it fits inside the scope of the question of the bond. So we're not going outside of the scope of the question of the bond. We're staying inside the scope of the question of the bond. It's outside the scope of what was selected by you all in that original work.
I guess my question is, there's money to pay for these things.
well, that's the thing, is they're not. So
There is.
Right.
when you,
Yeah.
when you pare that list down from 50 some odd items to 26 that we have, these are the dollars and the budgets for each one of those 26 that came across. Everything in items 22, 20, 27, 28, 29, and 30 is work that was not included in any one of these others. So, so what I wanted, when all of this, when this stuff was, that's why I asked Bruce okay, I understand that there's potential need to do these things, but this is not what was in the program, that how the $6.74 million, $6.75 million was put together. Said, so we need to break these out. We need to take those to the board and say, this is outside of what was originally budgeted work. So if you want to do it, it's just, that way it's not intermingled in with what you originally approved to happen with this bond.
If nothing else, it kind of tells you what it would take to finish them, if you decided to do it. There's still one bid package, large one to do, which is the elementary.
Yep.
We should be done with the drawings before Thanksgiving, so it'll go out after Thanksgiving to bid. So before the end of the year, you should know what the final amount you have to deal with this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So probably the one big thing, and I have accounted for, so 3 and 4 have a lot of door hardware in them. Issues going to other doors, existing doors throughout your facility, and making door hardware changes to them. Door hardware is one of those things that the freight is really expensive. And so when you're ordering smaller quantities of doors and frames and hardware, you pay a ton for freight proportionate to what your cost is. And so the door supplier gave me pricing on every one of those 4 options with a standalone freight number. If that order gets put in later and doesn't come with the lot of the shipment that the other comes with. And so I figured that I'm holding that number. And, and sometimes it's, over 10% of the cost of that particular block of door hardware is just freight. And so those numbers are kind of protected there. There may be price escalations that they're going to reprice, but having to deal with independent freight for a later shipment is already factored into these. So that kind of takes the urgency off of getting that pricing, if I were to not have included that. But again, I mean, you guys can make these decisions later. Even the Storm Shelter 1, the one thing to be cognizant of in the base bid Storm Shelter, the east half of the slab is not getting poured in the base bid, because that's where all the new plumbing would go. So there's like a sewer line running there. We kind of block out a big chunk of slab, and it would just be the exposed subgrade right there. if you decided not to finish the storm shelter and we're gonna leave it as just an open room for future, probably wanna go ahead and pour the concrete slab complete there. Now, I talked to Bruce, probably, like that slab, I think is a 6-inch slab in the storm shelter. Probably wanna put some thicker sand and maybe only pour that 3 inches thick in there, just so that if you ever go back and tear it out later, it's a little easier to tear out. 6 is a lot of slab to tear out. So, so if you, but there's kind of this delineation of where does one leave off? How do you set yourself up to be able to do this section? So like alternate 1 includes the filling in of that concrete slab, because that's necessary to finish out the storm shelter. But if you don't do storm shelter, if you don't do alternate 1 and you don't plan on doing it anytime soon, probably need to add the cost of filling that slab block out in, so you're not left with a open subgrade in there and for long term. So there's a little nuances to that out there.
Yeah, and conversely, if you can't do it right now, but you plan on doing it in the not too distant future,
You might leave it that
it
way.
might be, you leave it that way, or you go ahead and put the plumbing underground that you would do, and then go ahead and pour the floor. So there are a lot of different options on how you can skin that cat.
Yeah. The other thing to be cognizant of is, so, as we go into these, and you saw it as a item in the agenda or in the budgets. So that's 4,671,550. I have 5% of that as a construction contingency. So it's just an allowance of dollars in the GMP for unknowns. A lot of this building's, renovation work and stuff like that. So there could be variables we get into. We're building the storm shelter. We're getting started in November. What I don't want to do is tell the mason that you should expect really cold temperatures and you need to plan on building a tent around your scaffolding and putting heat and run propane heaters. Because if he doesn't have to do that, then, and he put that in his bid, he's not giving us that money back. It's better for me to say, you just assume you can build this under normal processes, and if it's a really cold snap and we need to have you plastic your scaffold and put heaters in there so the rock doesn't freeze, I'll pay you hourly to do that extra winter provision, and I draw on contingency for that. So it's kind of that way we're only paying for what we have to do. So as we go into this project, I'm not making any promises whatsoever that this contingency is going to be there to fund these things. But as we kind of cross the milestones, once we get, we get through all the dirt work, we get through the foundations, once we kind of get through the weather dependent work and we know whether we had to, how hard, what we had to do to get through the winter months building this, we'll reassess that and we say, okay, we can cut half that, maybe we'll cut a couple % of that contingency because we're kind of cross a milestone of risk there. So that's something to just understand too. I mean, that's an option that you guys can look at as a board is we will be reassessing that contingency as we move forward and look at releasing that back to you guys as we kind of get over some of those humps. So, 4,671,000 I think is a little over $230,000. Yeah, 233,000 approximately is what's in that number, and that's so that's our contingency to go into this. And again, at the end of the job, if it's not used and you haven't spent it on anything else, it gets change ordered out and you don't spend it at all. So I don't think it would be good. It would be helpful to know if we were doing alternate 1 in the next couple weeks, but it's not critical. Alternate 2 is not critical to know. Alternate 3 and 4 do have a lot of door hardware stuff in them, and we can save some money because I did account for that extra freight in those 2, so there's an opportunity to save some money. In those, can I see, you have your bids, your stack of bids? Yeah.
So what do you think the timeline is for the rest of the bid?
If we have drawings by, say, Thanksgiving, if we have drawings by Thanksgiving, we can get them out first week of December. We can take bids right before Christmas. And then, so probably right after the first of the year, we'd be back in front of you guys doing this meeting again. If it ends up that we don't get it out until, if we get a week or so beyond Thanksgiving, we're best to, well, we'll put it out on the street, but I'm not gonna take bids till probably the 8th or 9th or whatever, like a week after New Year's, because nobody's gonna look at it between Christmas and New Year's. So it would be probably late January before we brought it, mid to late January before we brought it to you on that. So just to give you a perspective, within alternate one, $1,975 is freight for the door hardware. Within alternate two, $978,000 is freight for the door hardware. Within alternate three, $13,189 is freight for the door hardware. And within alternate four, $17,760 is freight. So there's a lot of freight in this.
We'll pick it up ourselves.
I mean, it's a lot, and that's
It is, for instance, when we take the bids on the grade school stuff, because it has a decent quantity of doors and hardware in it, is that would probably be the time to decide if you're gonna do one of the alternates. Because then we could include that hardware in.
if it's the same supplier.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna bid that one out separate. I presume this door hardware supplier is gonna bid that too, but I've made it really clear to all the subs, you know, just because you bid on the VOAG and the daycare, it doesn't mean you just get this job. Just because you got this job doesn't mean you just get that added to your scope. That's a separate package, that gets rebid separate. So it may not be
So
the
where
same.
was that supplier out of?
Amarillo,
Something out of
Royal
Texas.
Architecture Products, they're a really good, I mean, your door hardware suppliers, the thing is that their office is in Amarillo, but everybody buys everything direct from the vendors. And everybody either direct ship it or they take it and they've inventoried in their shop and then send it on to you. You really, the freight, the hit you take on freight is the same whether you're working with a company out of Wichita or Amarillo or wherever. It's not so much their location that's causing that. Is that you know, those doors, the freight on those doors is coming from the same door supplier, whether you're buying it from a vendor out of Wichita or buying it from them.
So the rule of thumb was 30 doors constituted a full load. And it cost X amount for freight. If you bought only 3 doors, it was the same amount of freight. So trying to get the quantity up there so that they get full loads is really the goal of them and for us too. Now, sometimes, for instance, on alternate one, there's only one additional door and one additional frame with hardware. So his guys come up here about at least once a month. And if it's one door and they can fab it there, they'll just throw it in the pickup and bring it up, and so they won't have that additional freight. But in their bid, they can't count on that, so that's why they have to protect themselves on that. Also mentioned that part of their bid includes coming up and inspecting all of these other doors and frames, because in some cases, a new door was going on an existing frame. And in that case, they want to field measure all of those. And it also lets them really take a good look at what hardware is on some of those doors, because some of that can get reused and not have to be new. So alternate 3 that had a lot of that stuff, and even 4 could go down. So I spent the better part of the day with them on the phone, and we had pictures of all of these doors and we discussed them. So they were kind of covering worst case scenario on a lot of those.
I mean,
It's kind of the way Andy has to do it too with some of these. You assume the worst case going in, and then if it's not as bad as you think, or circumstances, it can bring the price down, and so you'll get that money back.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that, $17,000 on 307 is probably not gonna be your decision-making point, but it's just so you understand that there is some things that can be saved if that is put in and done with the base bid.
For instance, we had allowances in, like for floor covers.
Yep.
And we had a $30 per yard allowance for carpet. And Tyson and Jeremy came in last Friday to pick the carpet for the replacement. And it's more of a $20 a yard, so you get some money back on that allowance.
So we haven't, cause in Bruce's spec, he just tells them what to plan for dollar per square foot for all the flooring materials. And once you make all your tile selections, your carpet selections, everything of that sort, then they reprice it, and then if there's, any savings, then I write them a deed up change order, I move that money down into owner contingency, and it becomes savings. So, but right now, but they're in based on specific dollar per square foot allowances that Bruce specs out.
My personal opinion, I would not vote to approve an alternate until we know
Okay.
what our total dollars are gonna be.
Okay. I think that's,
It's not money to pay.
Yeah. Unless you two are gonna take a deduction in what we write a check back.
no, like I said, I think the finish out of this home shelter and some of the work that could be done. Just
I would like,
that's the only one I think
I would
is
say I would be interested to see what it would cost to get the plumbing there.
to rough it
Maybe
all
not
in and get
finish
it all
rough
stubbed up in the
so
right
it's
spot.
we're not having to bust out floor
Yeah.
when the time comes.
What would be the feasibility of subflooring that rather than pouring it until?
What's that?
What would be the feasibility of subflooring that vacant instead of pouring it?
Like putting wood floor in?
Yeah, putting a wood floor just,
Can you do that? Can we do that?
it's a temporary deal until we figure out what's going on and close the
Yeah,
hole.
it could just be rough pea gravel at this point too. So the use of the room really is a storm shelter. You can't fill it up with storage with stuff because that kind of defeats the shelter part of it. And so a locker room or something of that nature, a music room or whatever, is a good use for a big open room.
I guess my biggest question on it, as far as just filling that floor without pouring concrete and wasting a bunch of that money would be, if we're remodeling half of the high school here and we need to utilize that as a spare classroom, it would make that a usable space without a big gaping hole in the floor.
Yeah, because the one thing you would really see the most would just be floor drains. There's a chase where all of the shower heads are, so there's one stub up basically, and it flows into one drain. And you don't have to put in the water lines at this point above, so you wouldn't notice much with going ahead and putting in the plumbing at this point. Another option for locker rooms would be, they were designed with new lockers. An option would be, if you wanted to move your existing varsity lockers to the new ones and then pull out the old ones from the basement and put them in your existing locker rooms. And that would probably save a ton of money. Because lockers, if you didn't like them at some point, you just replace them. The HVAC unit on the roof doesn't change between a shelter and a locker room, so there's no additional cost or remodeling to that part of it.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can you guys can wait on that, because
So possibly looking at, well, and that's, I've talked to all of them too, and pushing for that elementary bid package to get done early too, because we have to have conversations about calendars. And so I'm not extremely confident that we're gonna be able to keep the same school calendar that we've had with construction and everything over the summer and everything, and so we'll need to be able to have those conversations and kind of look at different options for start dates and how we want to be able to give everybody those options. You want to keep it how it's been, everything the same, so we go until June of next summer? Do you want to go, I mean, that's just all things based on once we get the bids and kind of get a timeline put together of how the kitchen's gonna go and all of those things are gonna go. Like I told them, I'm not going to. You know, if they're saying end of July, we can get this done by the end of July. Yeah, I mean, we just know that deadlines
No,
are
I
always.
think it's a taller, one thing that actually gonna take quite a bit of time is every one of those classroom entrances is a modification to a structural wall.
Yeah.
And we gotta do all the way down that hallway, we gotta do that, so that's gonna take some time to do. Kitchen obviously is a really big scope of work, so.
A lot of stuff to talk about and to be able to, for them to be able to say, just like they showed you here on this project, to be able to say, here's kind of what we're looking at in terms of a timeline, to then be able to start saying, okay, what's the school calendar look like next year?
Yeah, you guys, say March, you say calendar in March?
They typically approved it in March, yeah.
Okay, so I put that construction schedule together before we ever bid the project out. And that's part of what I send out with the bids information, so that everybody who's bidding on the job knows when we expect their work to be, when they, like the mason, he knows he's gonna be here in late February, according to the schedule, so, and then he also knows how long I plan for him to do the work. So it sets all those expectations at the time they bid it. We'll have the same schedule built for the elementary, so when we bring to you in January the results of these bids, we'll have a calendar, we'll have a schedule, and if we say, hey, we need till like August 15th or 21st or something, and like when we did Scott City's bond issue, the summer that we remodeled, we started the remodel, we had to flip about 20% of their middle school in that summer. We had to remodel it and get it back, and it had to be operational because it had to work with the new addition in order for us to be able to gut the rest of the middle school. And we knew going in that we needed every day, and so they adjusted their calendar. They didn't start till after Labor Day. That schedule, that 1 year, students didn't come back till after Labor Day. But we told them about it, like you said, in January or February, and they set their calendar for the next year.
We looked out a little bit because when they did scope the sewer line, we didn't have any plans of that building to go from, and we didn't know where the sewer went to or came from in the kitchen. And when they scoped it and found it, it's in actually the perfect place for our new stuff. So the amount of demolition to the existing floor is really gonna be minimized from what we were afraid we were gonna have to do. And essentially, we're going in and gutting, so there's not a ton of hard construction to do once it's gutted. We've been trying to work our way through that one so that it minimizes downtime for them and get you back in business. The other part of the kitchen is we'll have a separate bid package for kitchen equipment that would be going in. And typically, that's a line item thing for each type of equipment, it'll give you a price. So if you needed to say, we can download that to next year's budget or something like that, or a grant that we get for something from USDA, you'd have that opportunity to pick and choose which equipment you're going to put in. And a little bit of it was kind of a wish list. that you may or may not need to get at this point, so.
So that'll be the importance of whenever he says it's ready time, January, that we'll get another meeting on the books to be able to do that so that we can get there. And then obviously I put it, I don't know if you logged in, but on your agenda, I just gave you an update of the bond accounts so you can see on there what interest, total interest has been earned and stuff on the bond accounts, broken down by month and everything like that, so how that's going as well. It's obviously because of, we've been doing this, so there really hasn't been a lot of major drawdowns on the total dollar amount, so it's been.
Did you sell all the bonds?
Yeah. Yeah, we sold them all, so. So you can see there that, yeah, a little, almost $180,000 in interest.
Okay,
Bidenomics is helping us somewhere at least.
what's that?
Bidenomics is helping us somewhere at least. About the only.
Okay, well, I've got what I need, I will go back and draft a contract amendment, so what, just Tyson and Joe, I guess what you'll see is, we did a GMP, the way our contract works is we wrote a guaranteed maximum price that was limited to that part. This next part, everything from here to right is actually a change order, so we're just increasing that contract amount, so what you're gonna get is a change order for the, adding the high school package. And it'll just be a document just similar to before, and you just sign it and it'll go into effect and we'll start writing subcontracts, so.
Okay,
Alrighty,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Huh?
Yeah, they're not doing, you pay it off.
Alright, well, anything else? We're adjourned.